Denver, this stream. If you're tuning in for the very first time to the Dr. Elisa Show, thank you for listening to this amazing station. KUHS is just an incredible radio station. And thank you for joining me. I am Dr. Elisa. I am the host of the show. And the doctor's real. I've got that PhD that I kind of rock while I'm on the show. And more academic degrees than people need. However, what I really have is life experience. And the people that I bring on the show that I really want to share with you have incredible life experience and incredible messages. You know, the tagline for my show is inspiring a renaissance of spirit. I want to ignite something in you each time you listen to me. If you love the show, and you really should, check out my website, because there's always a replay. And there's my blog. Oh yeah, and I write monthly horoscopes. They're called Soulscapes. And you can see how you can work with me. You can find me at elisarobin.com. You can also find me on Facebook, Elisa Robin. Oh yeah, Twitter. Oh yeah, Instagram. LinkedIn. I'm easy to find. Robin is spelled with a Y. It's the only tricky thing out there. I do want to say something special about today's show. Usually, the show is inspirational, and today we'll join that. As you know, though, I've really pushed us to all become philanthropists on this show in some way. And today, more than any day, I want to start with a bit of gratitude. And this is going to be an interesting introduction to today, because there's a lot I want to share, especially with my guest, who trust me, we're going to get to just in minutes. Each of us has a purpose on this planet, and we may not know what that is. It may be something in our future generations. That was really pushed home to me this morning. Today is Yom HaShoah. It is Holocaust Remembrance Day, which may not be a joyful thought of a way to share, to start my show, but it's very important to me. And here's why. My mother's father left Russia because he felt compelled. He was a wandering spirit. He wanted to go do something for his family. He came to the States, and then he went back and got his family out. All of this before World War II. He got his family out by bringing them through Poland, which is where he met my grandmother, because my grandmother's family ran a safe house, much like the safe houses where slaves came through in America and were saved from the South. Because he met her and brought his family here, he brought her here. She came in through Mexico. Thank you, Mexico. And they started a life here. The rest of her entire family in Warsaw, of her immediate family, was wiped out in the Holocaust, was murdered in the camps. And I'm bringing this up because today I was watching the ceremonies held virtually that to honor the memories of those whose names we remember and those whose names we'll never know. And I realized that one man, my grandfather, who followed something inside of him that he did for himself, but then did for his family, changed the course of history. I am here on the radio, inspiring you, hopefully helping you build a glorious life, because that man followed his dreams. That's an incredible thought to me. And trust me, when I talk to my guest, we'll follow that line. Not only do you get to hear from me, you get to check out, I wrote, right, Pirate Wisdom. I've talked to you about that. A leadership book from a pirate point of view. I take after my grandfather. Let's do it from the edge. My first novel, Way of the Well, spirituality with Jewish flavor. Again, I thank my grandfather for that, and I thank all of those people before me in my lineage who embraced a spiritual journey for which they paid. They paid with their lives, many of them. Your life choices matter. Your life choices matter. Okay. And what I encourage you to do, just on that note, before I get to my guest, is start today, this moment that you're listening to me, with a bit of gratitude. And you know I'm encouraging all of us to be philanthropists in this world. Every single one of us, at whatever level you can do that. $1 a month is fine. Make today a day that you are a philanthropist. If you have a favorite charity, whatever is around you. If you don't know where to donate, you know what? I've fundraised for the MS Society, and you can donate to my page. And I'll put that link in the Facebook site later. Today, gratitude, philanthropy, oh yeah, and live life free range. Okay, so now we get to the good part of the show. Marianne, thank you for being patient.
No worries.
For all of you who've always listened, you know that everyone who comes on my show, first off, they all turn into dear friends, which is like amazing. But they've inspired me. And so it's not just some sort of like random person. It's someone I admire and somebody who ignited something in me. And boy, this is a woman who has done that. So, Marianne Cantwell is an author of this amazing book. I mean, the title itself just makes you want to do something, right? A free-range human, as in not caged. And just the thought of that. I had to pick up the book. I had to read it. I had to listen to her videos. I had to listen to her TED Talk. And I am so incredibly blessed, Mary. And thank you for joining me today.
Thank you. I am so excited. I loved that introduction. So much to say to you today.
Okay, so what I want to start with, because that was such a brief introduction, what I'd love you to do is, you're inspired, and you inspire others, and something ignited in you to make you, to push you to become free range. Can you give us maybe the intro to that journey of yours? Just wherever you'd like to start.
Well, actually, I'm going to start somewhere a bit different to where I normally start with you because of your introduction that you gave. So, as you can hear, I grew up in Australia, even though I live in California now. And I grew up, both of my parents were immigrants from different countries. So, my father's English, my mother was Mauritian. You can Google it. It's a tiny little island. And so I grew up speaking French in a country that, in the countryside in Australia, in a place that wasn't very multicultural. And so also I was a total nerd. So I really grew up with an experience of not fitting in, right? Like it was not a diverse area at all. And so with that kind of shaped a lot of my life. So I was the person who, I think probably much like you, was very academic because I knew that's where I got recognition, that's where I'd get love, that's where I could achieve. And so I went through, and I want to set the scene like this because when people see my book and read the book, they do your own thing, live life on your terms. They can think I'm a real rebel, but actually that's not my past. That's not who I am. Instead, I was the one who thought, if I just tick every box, or check every box in American, and then I will get the prize at the end, because that's how we are raised, right? If I do the right thing, and if I graduate top of my class in high school, at university. I was actually on an academic path, which you might not know, and then I went traveling for a year, very luckily, in Europe, because that's what you do when you're Aussie. You work in pubs and you travel for a year. It's a rite of passage. And so I did that. And when I was there, I ended up talking my way into jobs. So I ended up working for a big record label. I ended up working for a multinational, very well-known entertainment company. And suddenly, I wasn't the top performer anymore. Suddenly, I was in a job, I think it was, I'd been there like a year, and I wasn't best in class. In fact, I was really bad at the job, and I had never had that experience. I was like president of my debate club, like I knew how to get things done, like I was that person. And suddenly I was there, and I was in tears every evening. I was going home, and I was like, what's happened? I did everything right. I've got the dream job. Everyone's like, you're so lucky to have that job. I have no idea how I got it. I was way too young for it. And I felt like, is this it? I felt smaller and smaller every day. And it was one day when I was, actually I said no, it was Disney. So I was working for Disney. And I was trying to get out of my job every day by going to every free training event they put on, which is the wonderful thing about a multinational. You go to training events, and I went to one where they talked about personality profiles, and I did my Myers-Briggs personality profile. And I remember it was such a big event for me, and I went up to the facilitator at the end and I said, do people like me, can we be happy at work? Because I didn't think that was possible. I thought my personality could never be happy. And he looked at me and he said, people like you are usually the happiest at work. And I was like, what are you talking about? And he just said to me, he goes, your job is made for your opposite personality. So every day you're coming to work and you're having to pretend to be someone you're not. And it was this huge moment. And it actually set me off on a several years of journey, which I could put together in one sentence, which was, I quit my job to try to do I didn't know what I was doing. Obviously, I had no clue what I was doing. She was trying to do consulting and corporate training. Within a few months, realized I had no clue. Went back into a job, but this time, the job I went into paid me for the things that I had to hide away in my previous role. I was being paid for the exact things that I was being told were too much, were not part of the job description. Suddenly, major clients were paying our consultancy for me to do that. From there, I ended up building out my own, I had a portfolio career. I quit my job in a much more positive way, went free range, which is my term for creating something on your terms. And that it went from there. I wrote a little blog many years ago called Free Range Humans. Turns out that was the most popular thing I did. Everyone's know about that. So I founded Free Range Humans, and now it's a book being translated into loads of languages. I've got an awesome following. I run courses on really not just how do you start a business. It's not really what we do. It's more like how do you find your right path so that you don't have to put your personality in a box to get paid, and so you don't have to put your dreams in a box until retirement. That's what I'm interested in. So yeah, that's my long answer. That is how I got there, by not fitting in.
That's a perfect answer, and there's so many pieces of that I want to dig into. Oh my gosh, I'm not sure where to start. How about, so let's take this piece. We are often told, right, and you and I have had this conversation, I was always told I was too passionate. I know people, women especially, who are saying, you're too assertive, you're too creative, you're too something, and you're better off if you don't do that. You talk about, you just mentioned it, and you talk about it in your book, you encourage us to shine a light on our uniqueness, on maybe even embrace that. And I told you, I've come to embrace that. People have told me I'm dangerous and too passionate and a little too mysterious and lots of stuff, and I just claim all those words. You talk about them as superpowers. Can you expand on that?
Yes. So, I'll definitely use you as an example. You're such a great example. But let's continue from the story I just gave, because that'd be
absolutely. Let's go that way. Yes.
Which is, we'll do both. We're going both directions here. So one was, great example right there. We don't even need, because I obviously help people start and grow their business and creative projects, but you can think of that in jobs as well. In one job, my tendency to think, I'm a big picture thinker, I am not detail oriented, I think about how can we improve this, how can we change this, I'm very passionate like you, good at presenting. That wasn't useful in a job that was essentially about analysis, and number analysis and accuracy. And so what was the piece of it that was useful was presenting, and I was able to do that maybe 5% of the time. However, I was able to take that 5% and blow it up into 95% of my next job, because, and this is the line I want everyone to keep in mind, weaknesses are just strengths in the wrong environment. That's what we are never told. Your weakness right now is probably a weakness. Every weakness or strength is a trend, right? If it's in the wrong environment, it's a weakness. It's a liability. If I was the most analytical, detail-oriented person in the world, in an environment where I needed to be free-flowing and creative, it's possible that would be a liability. In a job like my job at Disney, you would get promoted for it. So number one, it's just a trait. Two, strengths are exactly the same thing. And so that's the first thing I want to say. And so our biggest clue to our biggest superpowers, going to you now, is it's usually something that we have been told or we have decided is either too much, I am too passionate, I've been told to tone it down, or is not enough. I am not extroverted enough.
Yes.
I am not bold enough. So I always go, you want to find your biggest strengths, go and look in the places where we hold a little bit of shame, because they're there, because your biggest strengths, your superpowers, they bubble out of you. You can't stop them. And so at some point you'll have done it in the wrong environment and you'll have internalized, keep it down or pretend to be bigger than you are. It's always one of the two.
So I just had a thought from the very beginning of our conversation. Do you think that feeling of never fitting in was actually an advantage that you and I shared?
Yeah.
Because, and I always felt like I never fit in with anyone, my family, I had to sort of grow into. And I majored in something I loved, but I took a job in that field that I hated. And again, because of fit. I wonder, is that kind of a gift to us to be able to experience not fitting in so we can embrace ourselves? Have you ever thought of it that way?
Yes, I absolutely have. I think that if we're people who knew that we didn't fit in and who felt it, I have noticed that people who have grown up in very more homogenous environments who didn't have that experience, maybe they were able to hide it a little better, they still have that feeling. But that feeling hasn't been manifested strongly enough that they're able to embrace it. So what happens, very often I work with people like this, they've been able to pass so well that their fear of not passing by changing something is actually greater. So there's actually a little bit more work to do. It's not you can't do it. I've definitely done this work with people of crafting your own course. But yeah, having the experience of that means, we know the reality is no one is a perfect fit everywhere. There is no such thing. That's kind of what my TED Talk's about, is literally saying, even if you look at the outside of someone, they look like they're a perfect fit. The only reason that they're a perfect fit in their environment is that they created that environment. So we look at the leaders of an industry, we look at the thought leaders, we look at someone who's at the forefront of what they're doing, and we think that person has found their place. And the reality usually is that person has created their place. Usually someone's a leader because they didn't fit the mold before, therefore they stood out in some way. It could simply be that they're in a field where there's lots of passionate people and they're very good at being a lot more succinct. And so people really start going, I like that. I like how they're tight in what they're saying. And suddenly they're known or they're established. And then new people look at them and say, oh gosh, I'm too passionate now. I need to be tight and succinct. So we always look, everything's always a reaction to the other thing, like even generationally, like the next generation reacts against the one before. In your field and the people around you, it's a series of reactions. And the only one that's right is the one that fits you, because everything else will just be a shadow, like a tiny part of yourself.
Wow, that is brilliant. That's just, and I have to say reassuring. So everyone of our listeners out there who has felt like they don't, and still feels perhaps like they don't fit in, that's another gift. It's like, look at that. And I agree that we measure ourselves so often by looking at people who seem overnight success, brilliant in their field, and many of them are. They're very brilliant. But they found the fit and created the environment by finding themselves first. Right? I mean, that's what you're saying. So before I forget, because everyone is going to want to find you, right? We know that Free Range Human, right? I'm going to hold your book up again for everyone on we're live on video Facebook and on Twitter. You can buy this on Amazon, correct? Free Range Human.
Yes.
Right? But how else do they find you? We're just going to do a commercial for you right now. And what else what else do you do? Because people are all going to want to have a contact with you, a connection with you.
The easiest way is actually, if you're on Instagram, I can shortcut this. Go to Free Range Marianne. That's Marianne. Free Range Marianne. the link in my bio there, in my profile, links to everything. So easiest way is go to Instagram and look up Free Range Marianne. Easy one to remember if you're out walking while listening to this, and go and follow me, and like all the stuff's linked to you. But if you're not, then what you can do is you can just Google Free Range Human Marianne, you'll find me, or just go to free-range-humans.com, and there's a bunch of different stuff I'm doing. So you can see the link to my book there. You can see we're about to run a new program called Secret Superpowers, to find and use your secret superpowers to either find your direction, to get more ease and success in whatever you're doing, all that good stuff. That's on free-range-humans.com or at Free Range Marianne. Oh, and my one tip is, if you want to hear from me, is I write a weekly email called the Friday Love Letters. So go and drop your name in anything that you see on that page that has an email field. Put your name in there, and you will hear from me every week on my Friday Love Letters.
Awesome, awesome. We'll repeat that again. So if you're just joining me here on the Dr. Elisa Show on KUHS Denver, having an amazing conversation with Marianne Cantwell, who wrote Free Range Human and has many other talents. So thank you for joining us. Okay, so